Why would anyone choose a swamp? An unhealthy area afflicted by malaria and other diseases, whose islands are regularly flooded by high tides, to build one of the most fascinating and enchanting cities in the world. The origins of Venice are shrouded in a tapestry of legends and historical accounts, each adding a layer of intrigue to its rich narrative. From the tale of Antenor of Troy to the more grounded accounts of refugees fleeing barbarian invasions, each narrative shapes our understanding of Venice's genesis. As we delve into its history, we encounter the realities that shaped Venice's rise. The strategic location of the lagoon that provided refuge and access to trade routes, and thus nurtured the city's growth. Its unique topography, with canals serving as arteries instead of roads, gave rise to a distinctive urban landscape and a maritime culture that would define its identity. So join me as we embark on this exploration of Venice, where myth and reality converge. When Paris of Troy abducted Helen from her husband, he for sure wasn't aware that it would trigger one of the most famous and bloody wars in Greek mythology. I will now not enter into details about the Trojan War here, but what is important for this video is what happened after the Greek conquered Troy. Do you remember this short scene at the end of the movie when you can see Aeneas fleeing from Troy? According to a poem written by Virgil, one of the most important poets of the early Roman Empire, who talks about the long journey of Aeneas, he settled down in what we know today as Italy, becoming the sovereign of Latium, and actually 2 of his later descendants will found the eternal city of Rome. But Aeneas was not the only important man abandoning the city of Troy. Antenor, one of the counselors of King Priam, according to myth, betrayed Priam as he wouldn't listen to him and give Helen back. He thus helped the Greeks to conquer the city, reason why his family was not slaughtered during the attack. And then, according to legend, he either rebuilt another city on the ruins of Troy, or, and now this is more interesting for us, he left Troy, traveling west together with the nation of the Aeneadae. The long journey of Antenor and the Aeneadae ended when they reached an area that we know today as the Veneto region, lying in the northeast of Italy. Little curiosity aside, Antenor is actually mentioned by Dante Alighieri in his Divine Comedy in the 9th and last circle of hell. The deepest circle of hell, treachery, where Satan resides, is further divided into 4 rounds. The first one is Caina, named after the biblical Cain, who murdered his brother. This round is for traitors to family. The second one, Antenora, taking its name from Antenor of Troy, is reserved for political or national traitors. Now let's discover together what this story has to do with the foundation of Venice. A document known as the Chronicon Altinate, a collection of documents mostly originating from the 11th to the 13th century, treating the history of Venice and its origins, is speaking about the colonization of the area by the, yes you guessed it, the Trojans. According to this document, Antenor founded the city of Aquileia, and its inhabitants started to mix very soon with the Roman citizens of Altino, another city close by. Now, when Attila the Hun started to attack the Roman Empire around 450 AD, these Trojans and Romans fled together with Antenor to the lagoon, where Antenor already found Venice built and colonized by other Trojans. Antenor then settled down in an area known as Castello, the first seat, from where his followers then started to colonize the other islands and nearby areas. Antenor, in this occasion, also founded the city of Padua, where he is actually buried. If you would like to visit what is supposed, according to legend, to be Antenor's tomb, you can do so by heading over to Padua, where you will find his tomb in, very easy to remember, Antenor Square, Piazza Antenore. Other legends instead indicate that Padua was founded by Antenor before Venice, and that it was actually the city of Padua that founded the fascinating city of Venice in the lagoon. Now, this story or legend holds a quite considerate time incongruity, because Antenor left Troy around the 12th, 11th century BC, whilst Attila attacks the Roman mainland only more than 1,000 years later in 452 AD. Antenor would have been thus around 1,000 years old at the time of the colonization of the lagoon by these Trojan or Roman refugees. Sounds not very convincing, doesn't it? Unless he was way before Nicolas Flamel calling dibs on the philosopher's stone. So why, if there was no proof of these events, would they be considered true? Because when Venice became more and more important, richer and also famous, the city eventually searched to write down its glorious and honorable past and history, just like some people who pimp their CV or their Instagram profile here and there to make a better impression. For this official and glorious city history, one date became especially relevant, the 25th March of 421 AD. Another myth not connected to Antenor and Attila indicates that Venice was actually founded on the 25th March 421, roughly 30 years before Attila would attack the mainland. This date is tightly connected to the church of San Giacomo Frialto that, still according to legend, was built on this very same day and is thus the first and oldest church of Venice. This date, the 25th March 421, enters also the official city biography. But is this a true and reliable date? Just think about the day itself, the 25th of March. This is a very symbolic day in the Christian religion. On this very same day, an angel visits Mary to announce, "Do not be afraid, Mary, for you have found favor with God. Behold, you will conceive in your womb and bear a son, and you shall call his name Jesus." Mary learns that she was chosen to give birth to Jesus Christ. With the beginning of her pregnancy on the 25th of March, known in the Church as the Annunciation, begins the life of Jesus Christ on earth, and also symbolically the life of the city of Venice, a date that was obviously chosen on purpose. Next time you're in Venice, have a close look at the churches and the monuments. You will actually see that the Annunciation is depicted on many church facades or monuments in Venice, and even on the Rialto Bridge, connecting this religious event even tighter with the city's history. And the year 421? While this year is recorded by Marcantonio Sabellico in the 15th century when he writes the official biography of Venice, glorifying its origins, he admits himself that there are doubts about the year, but he firmly believes that the year is correct, and so he makes the year 421 the official year of the city's foundation. But what is this year really all about? And here enters Jacopo dell'Orologio. He was a doctor, astronomer, and also a clockmaker, working and living in Padua in the 13th, 14th century, more than 100 years before Sabellico will write his official history of Venice. Jacopo wrote a chronicle about the history of Padua and also of Venice, in which he stated, without any further proof, that Venice was founded by Padua in 421. So it was Padua that existed first, and not Venice. Was it? In 1420, about 100 years after Jacopo Dondi lived, the Palazzo della Ragione in Padua burned. An unknown counterfeiter used this place to transform the legend about Venice being founded by Padua, the one being told by Dondi, in a fake official document, and voila, this counterfeited document is widely, for the time, copied and entering even the chronicles of the historian Marcantonio Sabellico, written in the end of the 15th century. Sabellico now takes this year, omitting the little detail about the councillors from Padua founding Venice, and makes it the official historic year of foundation. Now that Marcantonio Sabellico had written the official history of Venice, the job was done, or rather perfectly and gloriously done. And it would have been a waste of time for other historians in centuries to come to dedicate again their time and also their work to the same topic. And that is the reason why the belief that Venice was founded in 421 continued to be considered true for a very, very long time. And the foundation of San Giacomo di Rialto, the oldest church of Venice, well, first documents cite this church only in the 11th century, so there's no historical proof that the church really existed earlier. Now, after speaking about these very glorious myths and legends, what was the real reason for building such a unique and also fascinating city in a swampy area? Yes, you heard right, a swampy area, or more precisely, a lagoon. The Venetian lagoon has a surface area of around 550 square kilometers. That's about 212 square miles. It is around 8% land, while around 80% consist of mudflats, tidal shallows, and also salt marshes. The lagoon is the largest wetland in the Mediterranean basin. We usually associate swarms or lagoons with diseases like malaria, bad smells, land that in general is difficult to cultivate. Just think of the tide which can regularly flood entire islands. Why would you go through all this trouble and settle down right here? Out of fear. The mainland used to be regularly attacked, and these attacks are collectively known under the term of barbarian invasions. They recap the attacks of the Visigoths in 401 and 408 AD, the attack of Attila in 452, the attacks of the Ostrogoths in 489, and the many Longobards attacks starting from 568 AD. You can imagine how exhausted the citizens of the mainland had been after all these invasions. And the real key date to consider for the development of the city of Venice is the year 639 AD, when the citizens of the towns Altino and Oderzo decided, due to the Longobards that slowly conquered the northern Italian mainland, to leave their cities for good and move elsewhere. Altino's citizens and its bishop fled to the lagoon, to Torcello, where in Roman times an important port area was already active. This is also proven by different archaeological findings. Torcello was a very safe place, as the attackers would have had to cross an area covered in water that I didn't know, that was shallow and thus also hard to navigate upon, and also dangerous for counterattacks. Far too risky. This means that the lagoon formed a natural protective wall, saving the inhabitants of these islands from invasions. The lagoon, as mentioned before, was already inhabited before Torcello started to develop as a new important center after the Longobard attacks. Another proof of this is, for instance, a very interesting letter by Cassiodoro, living between 490 and 580 AD. He tells us that the people living in the lagoon between Ravenna and Grado are called Venetians, and that the inhabitants, rich or poor, live in the same type of dwellings, feed on the same food, fish, and are dedicated to the main occupation of producing and trading salt. They have in a salt international currency that allows them to trade in every country. The lagoon and the coastal area stayed even after the Longobard attacks under the Byzantium reign, means under the Eastern Roman Emperor in Constantinople. But Constantinople was far away, and so there was a governor representing the power and the will of the emperor in Europe and taking care of the territory that was still part of the Eastern Roman Empire. This man was called the Exarch of Ravenna, sitting in, well, you guessed it, Ravenna. The Exarch Isacco, who was in charge when the citizens of Altino moved to Torcello, permitted the construction of a church, Santa Maria Genitrice, on Torcello Island, making it the church with the oldest proven origins in the lagoon, dating back to the year 639 AD. This church is even older than the famous St. Mark's Basilica in St. Mark's Square. Breaking it down very fast, Torcello slowly became an important port area, an Emporium Mega with an own council that reunited in the building that today is the Museum of Torcello, just next to Attila's throne. Wait a second, how is it possible to find Attila's throne on Torcello Island if you never set a foot in the lagoon? Something's not right here. And you guessed it, this throne has eventually nothing to do with Attila. But the seat looks very rough and mighty and manly, and so somehow the name Attila's throne was coined. It seems that in actuality this was the throne of the governor of Torcello instead. And by the way, it is said that women or girls sitting down on Attila's throne will eventually get pregnant within a year. Nothing else to expect from Attila's manly throne, I guess. But let's get back to the Emporium Mega on Torcello. At a certain point, Torcello had about 20,000 or 30,000 citizens, depending on the sources that you're reading. Consider that Venice nowadays has roughly more than 48,000 citizens, just to give you an idea of how big the center in the lagoon was. Today only about 10 residents populate the island, plus 2 or 3 cats and some pheasants. So what happened to Torcello, to this rich and important Emporium Mega? What triggered the decadence and the abandonment of this island? Well, sedimentation due to the rivers flowing into the lagoon, and thus the area around the island became more and more unhealthy to live on. Just think about mosquitoes, malaria, and even the plague starting from 1348. The constitution of a new important settlement and centre in the lagoon, known under the name of Rivus Altus, and later Venice. If you have any ideas for other topics about Venice, then just drop me a comment below. And if you liked this video, don't forget to give a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss the next one. In any case, thank you so much for watching.